Are you enjoying this or what? Welcome, everyone, especially all you fish tubers out there, to enjoy a moment of our time. Here we are in Fish Easy, an opportunity this weekend to enjoy some talk about things for your fish room. Yes, information that is vital for your fish room and tips, tricks, or whatever it might be. It's just a wonderful opportunity for me to share different things I've learned in the fish room. And so I hope that that's good for everybody. Hi, Jonathan Walker Clements. And thank you, Roman, for joining us. And also, Christopher was the first to say a comment. That's wonderful. It's good to see you. I'm just showing you a week later something about the fish we looked at last week. This is the Marlboro pair. And as you can see, those babies are growing fast. I don't know why they grow so fast, but they do. And it's quite amazing. So I think they're approaching close to, the older ones are definitely approaching close to 30 days. And this is the time when a lot of places they talk about how dangerous it is for discus fried at 30 days. And they've got to, let's see, they've got to be treated. But I haven't had any losses, so this is a good thing. No losses means good management. So far I'm changing the water about a quarter of the water every day, sometimes twice a day, and feeding them as often as I can. In fact, I should probably throw in some more baby brine shrimp just at this moment. It might be advantageous. Let me see. I'm going to grab some baby brine shrimp because I have some here, always on hand. Let's just dousing the top. Let's see, watch it come down, see if the fries start eating it. I want to welcome everybody. We have some interesting things to cover today. And as you can see, let's see. Yes, this is Eastern Standard Time, 411 Eastern Standard Time, same as Toronto. Yes, we are live from Toronto. Now, there's a lot of interesting things to cover today. Since we're doing this moment of checking back to what we were last week, some old business, just to give you some old and new business. Remember last week we covered something with the we covered some information on the latest hatch in our fish room. This hatch had to do with the Synodontis lucipinus, and this is where they are. And I think that when you see how big they've grown in just 1 week, you're just going to be amazed. To see if I can focus. They like to hide under the airstone. Whoa, there they are. And their full bellies show off how much brine shrimp they've been eating. So there they are a week later. I just can't believe how much they've grown. That is wonderful. It looks like a good number of them too, not a whole lot. But here's the good news. There's even better news. Since last week, we have had 2 more spawns from the breeding colony. Let's take a quick look. The first spawn is right here. If we can take a look at these are just a few days old. You can see them spinning around. They're just digesting their yolk sac at the moment. And there's quite a few. In fact, you'll see a cluster in the corner. See there? And there's a lot still spinning around. There must be, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing about 100. And more Synodontis lucipinus here. And they're doing quite well. Now, if you think that's enough, we're going to show you something else. Last night, we had aquarium, uh, another aquarium. First, you'll notice here in the bottom of this container, I don't know, let's see how we can see that. There they are. Those are eggs. Looks like you can, if I'm not quite focused on them, but because it's going through. But let's see if I can focus on the eggs. You see the eggs there on the bottom? All the masses along the bottom. There's another 100 eggs. They haven't hatched yet. And I'm expecting them to be something that is another group coming up. So we'll see. The numbers on the side, I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming. This particular nomenclature that I use is my own reference to how many days old. For example, the first number is the year. So this is 2021. We're almost to 365 days. This is day 352 in those days. So I can see from day 1352 to 1341 right there that these are about a number of days apart. What is that? 50, 41, 52 is 11 days apart. I have to double check those numbers. That doesn't sound right, does it? Oh, that is true. That's last week's, and this one is 1150. So you can see if this is 11, this is 1350, 350. These are small. They're not really eating yet, but if you look back and the ones that haven't hatched are just one day later. That's it, 1352. So I use that system. It's to identify in my notes. There's the eggs. Wait a minute. Do we have any hatches? A lot of eggs in there. The eggs are not sticky. They're not like Corydoras. You just dish them out by pouring the water out of the trap. There's the egg trap. And one day in the future, we'll get into how to set up a egg trap like that. And we'll get into that. So today's episodes, let me take a moment to get set up. Here we are. We've got to cover some information that's going to be vital for people who are interested in the rearing of fry. Welcome everybody. I'm glad that everybody's had a chance to say hello. Thank you so much. And what we're going to do is answer questions at the end, more towards the end, so please Delta Charlie, wonderful. Glad to have you with us. Is a PRAC member. PRAC stands for Peel Regional Aquarium Club, and that's the club I belong to, and I'm glad to have you. One day we'd like to get into more about why you'd want to join an aquarium club and the advantages of doing so. So the issues that we're going to cover today are having to do with feeding fry, and this is the important part. Some fry are growing at different ways, and especially in terms of they're growing from the bottom of the tank, they're growing from the midstream of the tank, or maybe they're growing from the top of the tank. So this is important to know. And why it's important to know is because you want to get the food in front of the fry. Now, what I'm going to show you today are some tips and tricks. I'm going to actually cover quite a few different points that are not the kind of thing that people mention. They're not the detail that people mention, and they kind of leave it for you to figure out. So that's what I like about my videos here at Fish Easy, is we're going to talk about specifics of little techniques and things that make it easier for you to be successful in your fish room. Now, when I was starting out, I used to use a fry food, and I had done a lot of experience with breeding barbs. Many of you know that I whoa, sorry about that. I hope I didn't make you dizzy. That was that was we had a fault there. Sorry about that. Hi, Greg Sage. Welcome. And Greg Sage is with us. He was with us last week, and I wanted to mention something about Greg Sage last week, and I forgot. And I really feel sorry if you ever have seen the videos that Greg Sage has put out. You'll know that they are also very much aligned with the kind of videos I have. Very informative, and they're very useful. And there are tips and tricks. I want to tell you all to go to selectaquatics.com. Select Aquatics is the name of the YouTube channel, and you'll find that Greg has done a lot of different videos, and he's had success in years and years and well, decades of experience. So welcome, Greg. Thank you very much. He's probably been instrumental when I first got into Odessa barbs. He was the source of Odessa barbs, and that's really great. Behind me, I will show you, Greg, the batch I have. Let me just turn the camera around so I can show you. The Odessa barb babies we showed the fry last week, they're growing fast. Now they're in here, look at this. Those fry have grown in 1 week. I don't know how many times, but I'm guessing there could be 50 in here. And in the past I've had up to 800 in a single tank like this out of a pair. But I'm very happy that I only got 50. And you may ask, well, why is that? Well, because I have found that trying to rear 800 is a challenge, and you need a lot of space. You really do. And so, I mean, this is what happens. I mean, just look at here. Down below in my rearing tank here, you'll see they are massing up, and they really go to town. They will actually jump out of this tank. The Odessa barbs are fun to have. They're lively. These ones, I've been just walking by, and they will jump out. They think they're getting fed. They will jump out of the tank and flop on the floor. So I have to be very careful and watchful not to get them too wound up. And a lid is always helpful for these little puppies. But in here you'll see some of them are starting to change in their coloration. So we're getting some males and at that age. But those are the Odessa barbs. And we saw these last week, but I like to show them weekly just to give you an idea of what's going on, how big they jumped. Now, what we did was we talked last week about let me get the camera around. Last week we talked about feeding those Odessa fry because they're so small. Tiny, tiny fry. And the tiny fry, you know, what do you feed them? Initially, I was feeding them micro powdered food. I prefer the brand Sarah. Sarah makes it, and I really like their brand, and it worked well for me. However, once you get into live foods, you realize that they work even better. They're tremendous because the difference is this, and if I have a little piece falling down in front of me, and I'm looking at it, and I'm a fry, and I say, what's that? It just goes right past me and falls to the bottom and sits there. And I might go over and give it a nibble. I might like to, you know, give it a taste. But if that little particle is going jerk, 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 I know it's something live. I know, ooh, that's something to attack. And so I will go up to it and I will investigate it and I will try to eat it. So that's what happens. A paramecia is walking by, or shall I say swimming by with its little, what do you call that? From the days of biology, I forget what those little cilia, I think it's cilia. around the edges of the body of the PM EST that propel it through the water, and so it's kind of moving about, kind of like that, and so it catches the attention of the fry. Now, when you start with worms, whether it's microworms or whether it's vinegar eels, it's the same thing. They're just wiggling like this, and I mean, who doesn't use worms to go fishing? So worms really is the way to catch their attention as well. Then there's obviously the moment or movement of the brine shrimp, and the baby brine shrimp. They're going, like a lot of action, a lot of movement, and bam, fish just jump after it. So that's the difference between live food and just dry food. So today I wanted to point out some ways in which you can utilize some of the live food that's the best way to do it. And I think that it is very helpful to understand what one can do to get the live food in the water in the best way. Now, I'm going to show you something right off the bat. Well, I already did show you this, but you didn't catch it because we didn't really hone in on it. But in this little container right to my left, we were looking at these Synodontis lucipinis, and they're kind of not eating yet, but I went ahead and put some microworms in here. Now, they've congregated over on the right side. Now notice, if you look real close, do you see the movement? Welcome, Nonstop Aquatics. Thank you for joining us today. Glad to see you. Stubbs Aquatics at Lake Karcha, that's also a new one. Thank you all for joining. But you'll see these microworms. Now they're in there because I wanted to give the fry something as soon as they want to start eating, something to nibble on. However, the important thing is not to overdo it. What people will do is they will take microworms and douse their tank, and they'll have so many microworms in there that it forms a layer at the bottom. And so then the fish are swimming about, and they're doing what these fish are doing, and that is circling and going about, and they're just having these issues. But there's too many. And then the worms will eventually die off, and then what do you have? Stagnant water, deterioration. So this is not good. This is not good at all. So what do you do now to administer the microworms, and how do you do it in a controlled manner? And what I'm going to show you right now is, we'll just take you from start to finish. I'm going to show you a batch, an actual batch. We're going to start a new batch to show how easy it is. I'm just going to, I did forget my yeast. My yeast is in the fridge. I may have to get that. Let me see. I'm going to show you. This is a container of microworms. I use Walter worms. There are many species. There's many kinds of microworms. Everybody just calls them microworms because, I mean, really, who gets a microscope out and looks at them and knows the difference between the species, as if you could figure it out? So what this is Walter worms, which are a little bit smaller than normal microworms. At least that's what they say. I've tried to do some comparisons, and I haven't seen that I could tell a big difference, but at least I know that these are quite small. And you saw them on the screen just a moment ago in that tank. Now, what you see at the bottom is the media, and you see them crawling up the sides. See, now, this white material on the side, this is what happens. People will open it up, take their finger, wipe the side, and have their finger full of microworms. And then they'll put it in the tank, and they will have no idea how many microworms they added. And that's what I mean by putting too much. So how do you control that? Well, okay, maybe just a little dab, with your finger. You can do it that way if you want. However, I've also found that the microworms are something I feed to my big fish. Which ones? The corridors. And so I like to make a batch or get a batch out and give it to the corridors. Because when the little microworms are down on the gravel, the corridors are just like love to look for little worms, and so they go crazy. And you'll see, you put the microworms in, you can't see them very well, but suddenly you see the corridors go ballistic, and they're just zipping around the tank, and they're all trying to feed, and they love this stuff. Now, after the media has been going for a while, sometimes there are no worms along the side. That happens too. It has to do with the stage when they're crawling up the sides. It has to do with the condition of the media and the state that they're in. So how do you get them out without taking out the media? I'm going to show you that. What is the media? This is actually, I'm showing you instant mashed potatoes. I buy it like this. Mashed potatoes, instant mashed potatoes. It comes in packets. So I will, this one's a box of 2 packets, and it makes quite a bit because you mix it with water, and that's it, mashed potatoes. It's that simple. I think normally when we eat it for our dinner, we're actually taking it and we're mixing it with hot water, I guess. I don't know what the instructions are. I don't use hot water. So it's dried potatoes. This is the one that does not have the extra flavoring and stuff. This is just the plain puree mashed potatoes. So here in Canada, it's you'll notice it's different. Your box in the United States or elsewhere might be somewhat different because here it's in everything is in English and French. So you'll notice the puree is the French part, but it's mashed. These are mashed potatoes. So it comes in a packet, and what I'm going to do is I'll show you. I use 1.5 of these packets, just because that's what I use. So I'm going to take 1.5 of these. I'm going to put it in my container. My container's down below. I keep the worms down in the lower part of my fish room, down on the floor, off the floor. Put down on the floor. I pour out 1, and then I save 1/2 from last time. I don't know why 1.5. Just for me, 1.5 seems to be better. You could do just 1 probably. That's not the point. How much water do I use? I don't have to measure it. I really don't, because I'm going to tell you how to know how much water. So here's another 1/2 from leftover from last time. Actually, it looked like 1/4. It's about right. I need to make this up because this particular batch I showed you is starting to give off a slight odor, but it doesn't have a strong odor. Other people recommend using oats and other kind of materials. I do not think that the oats has a good smell. For some reason, it really gets bad and stronger. But this one, I noticed the instant mashed potatoes doesn't. Now, how much water do I use? I'm going to go over to the sink, and what we're going to do is we're just going to keep pouring water in and mixing it until the consistency is that of mashed potatoes, and maybe on the dry side. I don't want it too soupy because once I put the worms in there, after a while it will become soupy, so I don't need to do that. Hi Sandy, thank you for joining us. Hello S, thank you. We've got a couple more great folks here with us. I don't know if we have Malik on board yet. I didn't catch him. He may not be able to join us today. He's so busy doing his streams. I don't know how I did it, but I missed the live stream with Nick last night. I was watching the first one. It didn't work, and then they had technical difficulties. But anyway, let me show you how to mix the potatoes. So we're going to go over to the sink, And I'm going to show you. All I need to do is grab my spoon. I'm going to grab my spoon here. And all I need is water. So I grab some water, maybe a cup of water, and I just pour it in. It immediately starts absorbing, and I just keep mixing and mixing and mixing. And it's amazing how much water you can add to this powder. And it just keeps getting dry. Now look at it, it's like dry. I just poured a bunch of water in there, but this is dry, too dry. I gotta add some more water. So I just add some more water, and I keep doing that until it's the consistency. Boy, that was a lot of water. No. Let's try another bunch. Maybe at this point I'll start adding it a little less each time. But I like this because it's not. It doesn't have. There's no smell to it. And so I think that's why it's just like instant starch, I guess, how it works. Then once it's like potatoes, this is quite dry, but I'm going to add a little bit more water, just a hair more water, and that's probably going to be it for this batch. Okay. And that's it. I smooth it out and I do this. And then I take from the refrigerator, what I'm going to use is I keep it in the refrigerator, it's the yeast that you use for baking bread. And I just sprinkle it on the top. Sometimes I might work a little bit into the potatoes. It doesn't seem to be one way or another important, but you just need the yeast, and I think that provides all the ingredients you need for microworms, except the worms. There's no worms in here. So now I'm going to take my spoon, take off some of the top of the existing culture and just spread it around, put the lid on, which has a few small holes punched in it, and leave it for a couple weeks. So once the worms are going, it turns out that everything is working fine, and it will produce worms constantly for many weeks. Now, how do you get them out? I'm going to show you that little trick. I'm going to take a little container. This is a plastic container, about a cup. It's like a cup size. I'm going to fill it full of water, like this much water. This is important. Now, what I'm going to do, let me get I left my worms over here. And here's the worms. Now, I'm not going to use the ones on the sides. I'm going to demonstrate how to get the worms off the top, because that's the trick. How do you get them off the top? Because sometimes the worms are not on the side. Now, if I could use my finger and I could, take it off, or use a Q-tip or whatever, and I could do that in the water. But I'm going to show you a consistent way to always be able to have it. Okay? So I'm going to take you to, first of all, to get a piece of paper towel. Now, not any paper towel. Don't use the ones that you normally have. This one is a paper towel. What do I mean by that? This is the kind of paper towel that you get when you go to like a public restroom, or they have these machines and you go boom boom and the roll kind of comes out and you go whoosh and rip it off. It comes in a big roll. This is the paper towel that people use to dry their hands. But you notice it's not thick, and it's absorbent, but it's not like the thick, bounty kind of absorbing paper towel that you would find at. It's important to get the right one. You don't want the one that's the quicker picker upper. And the reason for that is because that kind of paper towel is going to just absorb everything. And I don't want the media. I only want the worms. Right? so I'm going to take a strip of this. I'll show you the roll that I have anyway in a second. And I'm going to take my, I hope you can all see me. I'm going to take the top off, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to just put my hand on the corner, and I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to lay it down on top. It immediately begins to absorb the moisture. And so, you see there? See, that's what it's done. So, I'm going to just slowly pull it up after it being sitting there for about 5 seconds. Okay. From what I can see, when I pulled it up, I got some media on the bottom. You see that? So I don't really want that because that's going to pollute my tank. And I'm going to set this down. And I don't want the very bottom, so I'm just going to dip that in the water, get rid of it. Okay, so I got rid of the pieces that have maybe potatoes on them, okay? So then I'm going to take my water, and I'm just going to dip it into the water. Boom. Now what did I just do? I made white water. White water? I made water that's concentrated. This is how many worms. I'm looking for my flashlight. Here it is. I'm going to try to show you how many worms. Let me show you on the camera. So here's the white water. I don't know if you can see. There you go. Do you see the worms? They're all floating in the water, and that's why. There we go. Maybe that's better. Okay, it's just all about the angle. And so you see, it's the least amount of pollution. It's mostly just worms. And now, the trick is, once I've got this is what I've got, and now it's concentrated. You can see there's a lot of worms. There's millions and millions of those worms on there. I'm going to use my turkey baster, and I'm going to just put a little bit. Now, right now, it just so happens I don't have any of my breeder boxes that have smaller ram fry that need microworms. Okay. But I'm going to just take that much, not even a quarter, it's just a quarter ounce. And I can just feed some drops to this batch. And it's a little cloud of white worms, microworms. And it's not going to overwhelm this little container and then have issues with water quality instantly. So after I've done this and a few hours later, I'm going to give them a half water change, 50% water change. And I'm going to just put some in here because these are small enough they will see them and eat them. Some in here. They're still small enough they will eat them, although these are now on baby brine shrimp. So I'm glad about that. These are all going to make it fine, no issues. And then what do I do with this? All that work to get this, well, I'm going to pour this in the koi tank and let them have fun because they'll eat it up. And that's the advantage. And that's how I feed microworms, or in my case, Walter worms, which is about the same thing. Now that I have the container over here, I have my new batch, my spoon. And I'm just going to take it off of the old batch, about a spoonful. And it's time that I update it anyway. So here I have some. Put it on the top. Of course, I need to put on the yeast, which I haven't done yet. And so I just put it on here and kind of spread it around on the top and That's it. I've started a new culture. So I hope that was helpful about the microworms. Now I'd like to also ask the question, why, if I have microworms, do I want to use vinegar eels? The answer is quite simple. I also do vinegar eels. They're very easy to do. Thank you, Greg Sage, for all the help and assistance you gave me. I think my vinegar eels originally, when I was in California, I think they actually came from Greg. I seem to remember getting a small packet in one of the orders. You can get them from Greg in the United States. He's in Colorado right now. And we're going to look at it. This is my culture. It's very easy to grow. All you do is fill 50% of water, and that would be best if it was, could be reverse osmosis water, just pure water. It could be distilled water. And the other 50% is the cider vinegar that you get at the store. So it's 50-50. That's the concentration. I'm going to grab the bottle. This is what I use. It is apple cider vinegar. It is the organic type, and it has the mother down below. And so this one's been sitting there. It needs to be shaken up. So I will use 50% using this and 50% using water. And in the bottom, I put about a quarter of a slice of apple, and I peel it. So I just put the meaty part of the apple. And usually I like or prefer, I like the little more harder apples, a green apple, a Granny Smith, that kind. I like those because they don't break down so easy. But I've had apple slices being at the bottom, and they will last a couple of years actually. The culture will actually go bad after a couple of years, and long before the apple's gone, because the worms are not eating the apples. The worms are eating the bacteria and other small organisms that are feeding on the decaying apple in the highly acidic 50-50 concentration of vinegar eels. So how do I feed vinegar eels? I don't remember if I showed this in the past, but I just take a container. I put I like to use, I get these at the dollar store, and I take this and put in a coffee filter. Coffee filters I get at the dollar store too. And so what happens is I then pour the amount I have, because this is not vinegar. This is a concentration of vinegar eels. I use this bottle. I reuse the bottle. I like to use the 1.5 liter. I prefer that anyway, but I use the top, and you see there's a hole in the top, so I have a small hole. I also like to use this type of paper towel, and I will cover it when it's just sitting around so that the fruit flies don't get in. Then I just pour off the top, and I filter them out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter these out and use the coffee filter, and then just dunk it into my tank, because I'm going to end up with no solution. Just there might be small bits of vinegar in the paper towel, a little absorbent, but I've never found it to change the pH or to cause issues, because no matter what you're feeding, you're going to give these little tanks some water change. So the water change is going to be like 50% once or twice a day. So there's just no way for a little vinegar, a drop or two of vinegar, to actually make that big of a difference. And that's what I have found. The vinegar eels will actually get through the coffee filter. So this solution here can also be reused. So what I'm going to do is, when this is at the bottom, I can feed different fry boxes. And then on top of it, I'm going to refilter it so it gets to the bottom, just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to take it, now that it's gone through, and I have this coffee filter. I don't see the worms. I don't know if I'll never be able to see the worms in the coffee filter, but they're there. And I know it because once I turn it upside down, and I put it in here like this and give it a shake, I can see in the water column a tremendous amount of vinegar eels that go into the water column. And I see them there. I don't see them in here because it's hard to see. Now I'm going to take this to put the vinegar back in the bottle. I'm going to filter it a second time. So here's the bottle. It's kind of mixed up because I poured out of it. I don't want the bottom junk, and I just want the eels that were at the top. So I'm going to just pour it back. Now there's some other contraptions out there, and as I'm pouring it back, I'm going to then get another dose, another group of, and I can feed more tanks. Now a lot of people have tried these, put the water, fresh water, and put some cotton in between, and I went and bought that and I tried that out. I bought some individual pieces that look like this. You can buy these at some craft stores. It allows you to take a 2-liter bottle and screw it on both ends, and then you cut off the top, and I end up with, let's see if I have one. Yeah, I do. You do this. So then you have this screwed on the top, and this is your bottle at the bottom. And what will happen is, when it's all full of water, vinegar eels have to get to the surface. They need oxygen. And that's the difference between microworms and vinegar eels. And so the reason I would use vinegar eels in some cases or at some stages is when the fry are right here at the bottom. Okay, microworms are feeding off the bottom. You look and you see, look at, they're picking off the bottom. Okay, but look at the batch here versus this one here. These ones are actually way up at the top of the water column. And I have learned that the rams, when they first hatch, they first become free swimming, and they like to be at the top. So that's when I put the vinegar eels in, because I want the vinegar eels to go up into the water column, but also to go all the way to the top. That's where the fry are. And so the fry, or where the food is where the fry are, and that's what helps. So what I don't like about this one is I always seem to have problems with it leaking. It was dripping, and it was a mess. But if you want to use this method, it's sort of destructive, because I can keep feeding from this one bottle by refiltering over and over. But this one, once you keep taking I was using RO water to do the top, or fresh water. Well, I was using that. I kept replacing it as I would take out a baster full of vinegar eels and then put in more water to replace it. It turns out that eventually you run out of eels. But they're still breeding and they're still multiplying in the other way, in the other methods. So that's another reason why I stopped using this method. But it doesn't mean that you won't have success. It depends on your circumstances, how big your fish room is. I mean, I only have 20, 30 tanks, so maybe you have only a couple, or maybe you have more. So it just depends on the circumstances of how you need to produce the vinegar eels. And now, another batch ready to go. I just filtered it. I'm gonna just go like that, and I see it going into the breeder boxes, and voila. Then I discard that. Simple as that, and they get live food, the most beneficial kinds of food that they could have. So that gives you an idea of these two kinds of foods today. There are some, I haven't looked at the questions. Let me go back to the tablet and check out some of the questions that you may have had. Okay, so good question. Thank you, Lisa Sparkman. Scientific process, yes, it's kind of like that. Is it cold water? Yes, it's cold. It's not hot water, but it's tank temperature water. I think that tank temperature is the best. I think that works. Welcome, Canadian Aquatics. Okay, first byproducts. It floats on the surface. Again, that's not a bad deal. Okay, I know it works for a lot of people, but here's the difference. Again, it's on the surface. Now I have many times, and I have some videos, and you'll enjoy reading or I should say watching some of the videos I have on rainbow fish, pseudomugil, um, Furcatus, illuminatus, and I've bred a lot of rainbow fish, and including threadfin rainbows. And those particular fish, when they hatch, they hug the surface. They're always at the surface. And if I did the powdered, it stays on the top, and they go and they eat it, and they do go for it. That's true. It has its benefits, and it's probably an example of, if you wanted to have the most successful fry rearing experience, the most would be most beneficial by having as many different variety of foods available to them, and thus they're getting some of this, some of that. The live food, if it was just only one, it tends to be maybe not as nutritious as giving them a little bit of both. For example, I'm feeding the rams not just vinegar eels, but also the paramecia. Also, so a little bit of microworms. So I'm giving them like 3 different live foods. They're going to benefit, but you're going to yield a bigger group, a bigger bunch of fry in the end, because they're all getting some, because there's a lot of food in the water. They're finding it. So if you put something that's just on the surface and you're expecting all the ones at the bottom and all the fish to get to where the food is, forget it. You want the food to get where the fry are. That's the key, in my opinion. That's what's going to do it for you. So yeah, first bites, I'm sure is going to be beneficial. With all the live food feedings, I kind of gotten away from doing the powdered food until they get to the age where powdered food or micro pellets are introduced, and then they start eating that. Once they start eating that, that's really good nutrition for them, because I use the best Lear. I also use some other locally made, and these are all things for good nutrition, so that's helpful. Now, do I sell vinegar eels? Well, yeah, I mean, I will share my vinegar eels, my Walter worms, my paramecia, everything. Everything's available. I do have an ad on fishez.ca, and it's for the for the paramecia, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it. But what I'm thinking about doing is and this has happened this week. I've had 2 different people both asking for paramecia starters, and what I'm thinking about doing is offering people, look, if I have to ship a small vial of vinegar eels, or if I have to ship a small vial of paramecia, why not just give you the full gamut, all 3 of them? So that's what happens. This is the container. I got these from the dollar store. Very tight fitting lids. So you'll get a little vial of this. I'll give you all 3. I'll send it to you. My price is not so much the issue. I mean, you know, I will give a full 1.5 liter container for someone local who wants to come, but the shipping is the issue. So if you're willing to pay shipping plus a little extra, just to get these items, I don't make money on these live foods. What I find is that this was given me. I picked up, I think I got the Walter worms at our club auction. It was just brought to the club one day, and I bid on it. I probably paid $10 or something like that initially. So you know, it's not a money-making venture, so it's not costly to get to get a supply. And I would get all 3 and try all 3, and I just gave you the recipe for the vinegar eels, 50-50 plus a little apple slice, Um, the instant potatoes plus a little, you sprinkle on there um, yeast and put the eel worms on top, and that's done. Paramecia, I have a whole video on it, and it works great, and it even explains how to get peak um, amounts. Right now, I'm using a new bottle from last week, only not because the old bottle didn't have paramecia in it, because it did have a lot, but I like to use the one with the most highly concentrated. So I'm whatever is peaking at the moment, that's the bottle I use. And so I just move on every 10 days. I have a peaking bottle. So I want to share that with you, these ideas. And if anybody needs, just contact me. You can contact me at fishez.ca. There's a contact page, and you can find my email there. Or you can find me on Facebook. I'll respond to you there as well. It's just a matter of sending it out. I do know that Greg Sage can give you the eels as well, from Colorado. But if you want just a small start, and if you need a bigger concentration, it's a little harder to ship. So better to pick it up here in Toronto, GTA, the Greater Toronto area. So let's see. It was another question you missed. I may have missed it. Are you feeding microworms only to fry, or do you feed the mature stock as well? So that's a good question, because I guess you could feed the micro worms to the adults. They do see it. Smaller fish see it. Some of my larger fish, they don't even notice it in the water. Some of the large ones are like, what is this? It gets to the point where they'll eat baby brine shrimp, some of the adult fish, but I don't see them as much picking at the small itty bitty worms as much as smaller fish do. Fry, maybe smaller. These I got some these Odessa barbs here. Okay, so what do I feed to the adults? Baby brine shrimp, and also Daphnia. And I'll cover Daphnia in the future. And the reason I like Daphnia, it's a little more involved to keep them going. I have green water growing right here, and I'll explain how that works. This is a tank of green water. So I just grow green water. Some people use the green water to feed fry too. I mean, I haven't gotten into that, but I mean, I could try it a few times to see if that doesn't help too. But the green water is the food for Daphnia, and then the Daphnia will multiply. And what I love about Daphnia is that I can put it in a tank, and I never worry about it polluting the tank with, like, say, vinegar, or it's not going to change the composition of the tank, because the Daphnia will survive in the tank. They'll just live there. Of course, they'll get eaten, but as long as they're not eaten, they'll survive and live. They will not die. They will just keep. So that's the beauty of Daphnia. But there's such a nutritious snack, and the fish love their little jerky action. Like, they're swimming through the water, and they're just like, going like this, and poof, they get eaten. So they don't last long. But if they do, for example, what I've done is I've used a smaller Daphnia. I have a very small species also called Moina, or Cereodaphnia. And I will put it in the tank when the eggs are hatching, and they're too big to be eaten. But they'll multiply in there, and as they eat the stuff in the water column, but they actually will be eaten by the fry as the fry get bigger, and eventually the Daphnia are gone. So that's the thing about Daphnia. Well, any more questions? Did I answer? I hope I answered your question, Delta Charlie. I don't have a big opinion on scuds. I think that's a good fish food, but I have yet to see how to propagate them in such a way that you have a sufficient supply to be able to feed to your larger fish. And how, if you have to use a lot of tank space for rearing the live food, then what am I going to do about the tank space I need for my fish? So there's some trade-off there. I'm using space. Now, if I can rear my, you know, my worms in a little container like I just showed you, that can be sitting on the floor. That's not going to actually be taking up space. But this one is bad enough. This is a tank, and it's taking up shelf space, and so I have to be very careful. That's why it's small, but it gives me enough food for the Daphnia that I can do that. So I hope I answered your question. I would love to feed the scuds, and to create green water. Roman, that's a good question. The best way to create green water is take a tank, put some aquarium water in it, and add green water, a little bit, and in no time the water will just turn green. So it's just like any other live food. You need to have a start. It's very beneficial. Now, some people have a tank next to the light, and they had somehow got some green water in there, and next thing you know, the whole tank is green. Well, the best way to get rid of it, I guess, is lots of water changes. You just keep cutting it down, but until eventually it's out of there. But I have found that I had trouble starting green water to begin with. Oh, and I forgot. I use fertilizer. Yeah, plant fertilizer, because green water is a floating plant, a floating algae. So it doesn't ever attach itself to the walls of the glass. It's in the water. It's free flowing. So I do that. Now, to keep little bugs that might eat the green water, this tank has one guppy in it. So guppies, for some reason, do very well in green water. I don't know why, but you just put one guppy in there, and he eats any little bugs that might try to come up. So that way my green water is mostly all green water, and the guppy can't digest the green water. So, and it provides, it eats the little bugs that might, like, have you ever seen, what are those, seed shrimp? Seed shrimp. I don't like seed shrimp because some people think that it's a good live food, but a lot of my fish don't eat it. I'll have seed shrimp in the tank and they'll spit it out. It's like, they don't like that, it's okay. So, in order to prevent the seed shrimp from taking over, one guppy takes care of the seed shrimp, and then I have the water. So I hope that is a brief explanation, but I'll show you the Daphnia in a future live stream. Welcome anybody who just joined us. Looks like Stubbs Aquatics can't stay, but that's fine. We're at the end of our lesson. The last and final show for all of you today is those who stayed for the entire hour get to see the shark tank. Yeah, shark tank. You ready? You're going to see the shark tank? Here we go. Enjoy for a moment. Here we have these are quite a few. I have Odessa barbs, I have tiger barbs, and of course there's the roseline sharks. The roseline sharks are a Dacinia genus. Now it's Dacinsia, and I used to raise a lot of Dacinsia. I had filament barbs. I also had the Rohani barbs for some time. Now let's watch what happens. It's going to be feeding time in the shark tank. They're getting excited, and I'm just going to put this sheet of algae, seaweed I mean, well, sort of the same thing, and there we go. Immediately they love it. So this is currently ow, come on, you guys are biting me. Hungry. And so these guys are so fun to have. To have a tank of piranha like this, the green tiger barbs, a few striped ones, I got one albino, and the roseline sharks really make it impressive. You can tell that I have a tendency to go for red colored fish. I don't know why that is. All my fish seem to have red on them. But these are, this is a tank. If I have some tiny fry or anything that is maybe uh, on the side that have to be cold, maybe they're deformed, or they go into the shark tank and they're gone instantly. It's just fish eating fish. Or I could just, for those of you who may be squeamish, I could get out my salmon mixture of fish food and use that, powdered salmon, because if you look at the ingredient of most fish foods, it's salmon seems to be the popular item. But there you go. Thank you for staying with me. Don't forget to give a thumbs up. I appreciate if you're part of the replay. Please put it down in the comments below that you're part of the replay crew, so we know how you enjoyed the program, and if there's any questions that I missed, I will try to pick up on them next time. And yeah, Jonathan, please do call me. 6:30 is fine. And I appreciate everybody who came online to see the Shark Tank and all the wonderful tips I had for today. I think I'm going to cover some more about these live foods in the future and the things I've missed, because once you got the arsenal down and you have all those available to you and you're using them, you will find a multi-fold improvement on rearing fry. And just to remind ourselves what it's like, I have some fry over here that I'm really proud of. These are doing excellent. These are all electric blue rams. And look at this batch, just doing awesome. And that's what it's all about, rearing these fry, getting them to the point where they are enjoying. We're going to be doing some talking about, now what do I do at this point? These are getting to the point where they're a little large. Well, especially those ones up above. These guys are too large for their breeder box, and so we're going to have to move them into a larger tank. They're ready to be moved today. So thank you. I'm going to sign out now, and appreciate all the thumbs up and all the shares that you've made in sharing with other people the live stream. And I appreciate everything. Have a good evening, and thank you for joining and spending your time here at Fish Easy in Toronto, Canada.